evening. This is the 10th edition of surgical clinics, and we are having an interesting liver lesion today. So directly going to the case history, it's a history of 38-year-old female with recent onset of abdominal distension and early satiety. No history of abdominal pain, jaundice, GI bleed, altered bowel habits, or no history of loss of appetite or loss of weight. She was not a diabetic or hypertensive. History of bronchial asthma, no past history of any surgeries, no family history of malignancies. On examination, patient was pale, no jaundice, no edema, or no generalized lymphadenopathy. Abdominal examination revealed a large mass upper abdomen, firm, moving well with respiration. No surface irregularities could make out. Liver not palpable, no splenomegaly, no ascites, no pelvic deposits. This was the picture of the patient at the time of examination. So you can see the bulge, upper abdomen is full. Investigations revealed hemoglobin of 9.7 gram per deciliter, total count of 10,800, platelet 3.68. All the other parameters were within normal limits. The viral markers were negative. Alpha fetoprotein was 1.01. CEA was 2.3 nanogram per ml, and CA125 was 38 international units per ml. Then an ultrasound which showed a normal liver and with a normal echo texture, normal CBD, no intrahepatic biliary radical dilatation, a large thick-walled cystic lesion with internal septations and internal echoes measuring 21 into 16 into 14 centimeter, noted involving multiple segments of liver. Gallbladder was normally distended, spleen was normal, uterus showed a posterior intramural fibroid. So what next? What is the investigation protocol in this case?
Start with Pali.
Yeah, I guess we'll go for the good old CT, contrast enhanced CT, liver protocol. Triple phase liver protocol CT scan.
Okay. So we did a CT. So this is the plain CT. You can see, actually, I got the CED of this patient, but I could not develop a movie because it was not showing in movie in DICOM. So these are the images which I thought were relevant in this case. So it's a plain CT of this patient. So this is the arterial phase CT. So another picture of arterial phase CT. Then this is the venous phase, portal venous phase. And you can see another view. And this is the coronal section. You can see the extent of lesion in the liver.
Then Paril, you take a call.
Yeah, so from the overall clinical picture, labs and the CT images, my first impression is biliary cyst adenoma. That's my probably the strong suspicion. Hydatid cyst is a differential but appears pretty unlikely. I'm not.
Why cyst adenoma? What are the features?
So it's a cyst, multiple septations, and septations may be appearing to be slightly enhancing. If I see the septations are maybe slightly enhancing, and I think there are some solid areas also, and especially in the top center image and in the bottom center image, I probably see some areas which, and also in the last image, I see areas which may be actually solid. So biliary cyst adenoma, based on these findings, I think biliary cyst adenoma doesn't really look like hydatid. The wall should be different. Wall should be much thicker and hydatid. The layering, the daughter cyst, gas, hydatid sand, and all those things are not there. So hydatid cyst is a very, very distant differential, as much as a simple cyst. Simple cyst again is probably doesn't fit in at all, but I'd be surprised if it's a simple cyst, but I'll just keep it as a very, very distant third differential. So I would like to work on a first DD of the diagnosis of biliary cyst adenoma.
Shankar?
So good evening, sir. My first diagnosis is also biliary cyst adenoma for the reason that she's a young female patient, and the location of the lesion seems to be in the typical site of a biliary cyst adenoma, which involves the segment 4. So this also, but this is a very large one, and it is having a very large exophatic component. Extrahepatically, it's having an exophatic component, and definitely the septae seems to be enhancing with contrast that differentiates it from hydatid cyst. But obviously, we'll have to run these images in the PACS and look for the subtle enhancement that happens in the septae of cyst adenoma. Obviously, I'll do a hydatid serology. If it comes as negative, that will add to my diagnosis. So my diagnosis is also biliary cyst adenoma, and hydatid, I'll just try to rule out with a serology. Yeah.
I have a query, Dr. Shankar. Can it be malignant biliary cyst or biliary cyst adenocarcinoma? Any features to suggest biliary cyst adenocarcinoma in the available images?
I mean, obviously, I'm not able to see gross mural nodules. I mean, in these images, I'm not able to see obvious mural nodules, except for septations, and it's a complex cyst. At least in these images, I'm not able to say whether it's a cyst adenocarcinoma, but that's a possibility is there, but no mural nodules.
Prathapan, how common is cyst adenocarcinoma?
I have seen 2 cases. I don't know how common, but obviously it is very rare. Even the biliary cyst adenomas are also not a very common diagnosis.
Yeah, it's very difficult to say whether it's adenocarcinoma. That's extremely rare, but it's a possibility. Biliary cyst adenomas are pre-malignant lesions with a very tiny potential for malignant transformation. In this case, what I'll do is I'll treat it as a biliary cyst adenoma. I mean, the treatment is going to be almost same, except that I'm going to I'll try and mark out those areas where I suspect there is some solid areas for the pathologist to look into. Otherwise, it's such a huge cyst, and there will be hundreds of tiny subcysts inside the lesion. They may just check some 10-15 cuts and then leave it. So here, if there is any suspicion, those areas I'll mark with some suture if possible, or at least I will be around there to show where my areas of suspicion are. Here, there are a couple of areas which I mentioned where it might be solid and might be the places where there is some transformation going on. So that is the only thing I will do.
Shankar, the biliary cyst adenoma, does it have any predilection to any particular area of the liver and
Yes,
any size criteria?
No, it specifically affects the segment 4 region, because one explanation is that in the embryogenesis, this part is close to the primordium, which leads to the ovary. So, and we also know that this biliary cyst adenoma has ovarian stroma in histology. So it is related to, so because of all these reasons, specifically segment 4 seems to be most commonly affected. Similarly, when we are talking about a pancreatic cyst adenoma, the tail of the pancreas is more commonly affected. So the explanation is because of the proximity of these regions in relation to the gonadal genesis. Yeah.
And the size, because we don't tend to see this big cyst adenoma. We see hydatids of many sizes, but biliary cyst adenomas, I don't know how common you get this size.
Yeah, I agree, sir. This size usually huge. We get huge hydatid only. Cyst adenoma, but there are any number of occasions where biliary cyst adenoma has been wrongly diagnosed as hydatid and treated. Mm-hmm. They treat. We get patients after somebody has exploded and or treated like a hydatid, but I mean, unless we know that all the complex cysts are not hydatid cysts, then only we can think about this possibility.
Any comment on that?
Yeah, I agree with Dr. Shankar. I really don't have
Are there
anything more
any
than-
biochemical markers or any other non-radiological supports for biliary cyst adenoma?
I don't think so. I don't think there is any serological marker that would help us.
Yeah.
I'm not
Raman?
aware.
Interesting. I have checked, but nothing came out. Everything was normal in this case, including CA125, CA, CA19, and AF. Everything was normal in this case.
Right.
So one point regarding Shankar's statement is common on the segment 4B, but when you look at the previous literature, all were showing right lobe predilection for biliary cyst adenoma, but recent series are all showing increased incidence in segment 4B. Okay. So the report of this, a large exophytic fluid density lesion seen arising from the right lobe of liver, extending inframedially in extrahepatic space till umbilicus. And its size is around 17.9 into 15.2 into 17.2 centimeters. Lesion is showing thin enhancing wall of thickness 2 millimeter. Multiple thin wall septations seen within the lesion of thickness 2 millimeter. And septations are showing minimal contrast enhancement. Few punctate areas of calcification seen within the septum. No obvious solid components within the cyst. So this is suggesting a non-malignant process as per the CT report. But the lesion is causing compression of mild compression of CBD with splaying of branches of portal vein with maintained fat planes and mild central IHBRD, and inframedially it is causing compression of pancreatic head, small bowel, IVC, renal veins, and with maintained fat planes. So it's a suggestive of biliary cyst adenoma. That was the report. So everybody was suggesting hydatid serology, and that was also negative. So what will be the next plan? Directly explore, or do we need to do other investigation?
See, directly exploring is not a bad option, but if possible, like to have a good idea about where the left hepatic artery is and what is the relation of the left hepatic duct and segment 4 ducts in relation to the cyst is. So if there is a good CT has been done, I would like to go through it well, because I've seen such big lesions. The left hepatic artery and the bile duct gets stretched over it. It looks as if they are just some strands, and we have had cases where they've been cut thinking they're just connective tissue strands, only to realize it later. So that is the only catch in this situation. If possible, I'll try to have a good imaging if the imaging has not been done. So money is not an issue. I will get a MRCP also. I need to know where the
Are you talking in terms of CT angio or MR angio?
Yeah, sure. MR angio, if you can give all the information on go, that's fine too. I mean, it's not essential, but I would love to get it done, because I've seen cases where we have injured the hepatic artery, the bile ducts, and or the intrahepatic biliary branches and everything, and made a mess out of it. So possible I'll go well prepared with the geography, with a good roadmap.
Shankar?
Yes, sir. I'm not sure whether MRCP we can get a good image in this particular case, because there may be an overlap because everything will look hyper intense. So we can do it, but I'm afraid that we may not get a good quality MRCP in this patient. But what we can do is, a good quality CT is enough to proceed further. Because obviously this patient needs a resection of this massive cyst, complex cyst. And obviously my plan is to do a left hepatectomy in this patient. So I will just make sure that a good triple phase CT is done, and I'll get as far as I try to delineate the portal vein branches, hepatic vein, and I'll go with I think I don't need any other investigations in this particular patient.
Pari, the
Yeah.
point of how will the MRCP will influence your patient?
Yeah, I wanted to come back on the topic. Yeah, initially I used to think, that the big cyst gets the duct gets overlapped and all those things. That's very, very true if you're going to take the reconstructed images. But I have learned that, the reconstructed images give very little information, and we should probably, I have now used to seeing the actual MRI live cuts, the actual cuts, where you can see the ducts coming in, where they go, where they join, or at which point, they get compressed and all those things. Most of this information are all not possible when you see the cholangiograms that they give. Cholangiograms, you will not see anything. You will just see a big cyst, and then all the ducts, nothing is seen. But if you see the cuts, especially if you ask them to triangulate them, where the software can show it in different angles, then there's a very good chance that you can see the good anatomy, where the ducts come, where they join, how it is gets stretched. All those things can be seen on a live raw images, not on the cholangiograms. Cholangiograms are not going to tell you anything. So that's the reason why.
How will it caution you, or how will you change your approach in case? Do these bile ducts get splayed by?
Yes, sir. Sometimes, yes, sir. We had situations where the left duct was so much splayed, and it was almost like a small connective tissue. Both the left duct as well as the arteries, they were all cut before we were able to identify that we had actually done that. So then going back to the MR images, that patient had MR. Then I thought that probably if I had known that this is where the duct is on the anterior aspect, or the duct is here posterior, or duct is very well seen, I go for probably a little better prepared. As I mentioned, it's not essential, but after that case, I make it a point, if possible, to get an MRI so that I run through the raw images and have a good picture in my mind.
Shankar, if I may ask you, like when you excise cystadenoma, will there be a situation where you cut bile ducts or arteries or portal vein, and later on you'll struggle to control them?
Sorry, when you operate on there are various options for surgical options for a cystadenoma. One option is you can do an enucleation. Of course, not in this patient. If it is a smaller lesion, I think enucleation is an option. But when you do enucleation, when you come close to the hilum, we have to be very careful. In those case situations, definitely MRCP will be helpful, because at some point it will be very close to the left portal vein and hepatic duct, left hepatic duct. So definitely you can, you might definitely you will open the duct when you do an enucleation. But when you are planning for a left hepatectomy, I think that's not a problem. Only thing is, as Pari was telling, the right ducts can be also stretched. So when you work on the surface of the cyst wall, we have to be very careful. Sometimes you can have openings in the right hepatic duct, which has to be sutured. So definitely we will encounter biliary anatomy will be very close proximity to this cyst.
Sir, I agree with Dr. Shankar. If you're planning a left hepatectomy, probably this is, maybe may not do it, but still I will allow to know whether there is a right posterior or some sacral duct opening into the left duct, and I don't want to stand injuring the sacral duct after doing and realizing it only after doing a left hepatectomy. So when money is not an issue, I am really more comfortable if I have a biliary anatomy well delineated, because I don't want to injure a left duct, sacral duct draining into the left duct. And in this case, I would do a enucleation. That's why I think in my mind, knowing the biliary anatomy is going to make me very comfortable. I would probably not attempt or plan a left hepatectomy in this case. That's the reason why I thought I'll get
one other question before you go back to Pradhan. Pradhan is getting a little restless. Now, see, the hemangioma is easy to enucleate because there is some sort of a fatty layer where you can put your hands and do. Is biliary cystodenoma equally easy, or is there any technical issue in enucleation? Shankar?
I think more than hemangioma, biliary cystodenoma should be easy to enucleate, sir. Because just you can, the plane opens up and you can use an energy source and you can work on the surface of the cyst wall.
Mm-hmm.
So I think biliary
And it
cystodenoma
is not vascular also.
It will have definitely, there will be an interface between the cyst wall and
Normal liver.
and the liver parenchyma.
Right.
Yeah, we can work on that plane and we can enucleate. Yeah.
Sorry?
Yeah, I agree, sir. These things have probably been there for several years. So although the capsule doesn't look as thick as, say, hydatid or hemangioma, they do have a fairly robust capsule. And many times they just open up. The only thing is, while applying the energy source, we have to apply it directed towards the liver, not towards the cyst, so that it nicely and gently opens up. So I would probably be attempting one of those surgeries where you remove it with or without a little bit of liver parenchyma around it. So I think probably, although it's correct, the left apodectomy probably may be avoided.
Yeah, Brahman, back to you.
So I didn't do MRI or MRCP because I thought it was totally exophyting lesion with a very little attachment to the liver. But what Parry was telling is absolutely correct, because I had one case in which posterior septal duct was injured because it was joining into the left hepatic duct during enucleation of a large biliary cystodenoma. So as far as possible, try to do an MRCP. So we did it using a modified McVitie incision. It showed a large cystic lesion with solid areas of size around 25, 28 centimeters arising from segment 4B and part of segment 5 of liver with compression on common hepatic duct at the porta hepatis. Gallbladder was displaced to right. IVC is seen prominent and no evidence of any metastasis, ascites of peritoneal deposits, and uterus showed the fibroid. So I did a complete excision of tumor with a margin of liver tissue. It amounted to excision of segment 5 and segment 4B. It's more than enucleation. I could see the hepatic hilar structures which are safeguarded and preserved. I did a cholecystectomy because I plan to do a segment 5 resection as well. Post procedure, there was no bile identified at the cut surface of parenchyma, and I could attain complete hemostasis. So this was the intro picture. You can see the multiple subtate cyst, which is almost coming out. And we can see the posterior aspect of these images. And we started dissecting the posterior aspect as well. And these are the structures which finally present after resection of the cyst. So this is a final picture of the large tumor. And finally, this is the cut surface of liver. It's actually, we did a resection of the central part of the central part of liver, including segment 4B and 5, segment 2, 3 left behind. So it is more than an enucleation. We did a resection of the lesion with the margin of lesion because of this large size. I was expecting some malignancy somewhere in the parenchymal side. So I gave a margin. So during surgery, I aspirated the fluid. The CA99 was more than 500 showing. CEA was again high. CA 125 was normal and no malignancy identified. So any comment about the procedure performed? I think.
Prathapan, did you do Pringles?
No. I didn't
Did you require to do Pringle?
Nothing. I think it was done without transfusion, and we could identify this.
That's your bold go in. Shankar is planning a left aptectomy. So, what terminology will you give to your procedure?
This procedure? This is
Central
not
aptectomy.
left. No, it's not central hepatectomy. It's actually enucleation plus. I don't say it's enucleation. It is actually excision of the base of this lesion, because the major part of the lesion was exophytic. So resecting it with a margin of normal liver was not an issue.
Pari, what precautions would you take before you start, say, enucleating or dissecting?
Always basics, good exposure. I don't know what he meant by a modified Makuchi. So I think the most important thing in liver surgery is a very good exposure. We really cannot be mean in giving incisions. You really have to give a good incision, and you have to mobilize the liver well. Just in case there is any significant bleeding, you should have the liver in your hand, so that, you know, with 2 hands you can compress the liver. If it is not well mobilized, you will not be able to do that maneuver. So it's very important to mobilize the liver very well. And access for doing Pringles maneuver, you should have it all looped. And in this case, I think Prathapan didn't need to do a Pringles, but many times we would need to do a Pringle maneuver. And slow and all planned steps. I don't know what energy source he used. I would always use CUSA if it's available, especially if I'm going to be going close to the pedicles. So I would use a CUSA. I'll do these very, very basic steps. Go slow. Try and identify the structures that you are going to encounter based on what you have seen on the CT scan and MRI. It's very important to revise the anatomy just before you start surgery. You have to have things in mind that at this point I'm going to encounter the posterior sector duct, or segment 4 is going to be here. All those things you should have it in your mind, and you should actually see them. So it's basically all small basic steps done very diligently.
Shankar, will you be any different in your approach?
I just want to ask Prathapan, did he have to decompress intraoperatively the huge cyst?
No, you can see the cyst. No? I removed it completely. I aspirated the cyst after the procedure only to send for some culture.
Suppose, is it wrong to decompress the cyst intraoperatively?
No, you can always, because when you have doubt in getting the posterior plane, many a time what happens is if you handle a large biliary cystoadenoma anteriorly, you don't have any issue, but the hilar area may not be accessible, and if you try to resect the parenchyma, there will be bleeding. In those situations, I think you can decompress the cyst without much spillage, and you can always get the posterior plane correctly. Yeah. There is no harm in doing
because I thought if you decompress this cyst intraoperatively without spilling it, the whole handling of the thing becomes very easy instead of having the intact huge exophytic component and meddling around. So that is one point I will do. And when you do that, in this case, you can finish up the surgery with even a midline incision, large midline incision. That's my opinion, because you are going to do only a left-sided thing. So anyhow, I would have done a left apatectomy in this patient. I mean, it all depends whether to do a liver resection or do an enucleation. Depends upon what is the surface area that you are going to encounter. Suppose the cyst is both having intrahepatic component as well as extrahepatic component, then you'll have to work. You'll have a large area of the transection surface. So to avoid that, you can go for a left apatectomy. So that is and sometimes you told that the segment 5 is also involved. Mostly the segment 5 will be compressed. So in such situations, you can work around the cyst wall and then complete the left apatectomy. And so it all depends upon the morphology of the cyst. If it is predominantly exophytic, then I think enucleation is an option. But my point is, at some point in the hilum, you'll have a communication with one of the bile ducts. So
That
it's
bile
not,
duct we have like
and intraoperatively you'll have to, as Dr. Niket is asking one question in the chat box. Did you do an intraoperative leak test for the bile?
through the cystic duct stump, I injected saline and looked for any leak obvious. I
Okay.
think you can use this technique.
Fine. Okay.
This is the picture of the left big and liver. You can see the bile duct structure, hilum, everything clearly, and you can see the strands of resected segments. Okay.
Evan,
Yeah.
I could see that you had applied some few, artery forceps, clamps in the hilum after the
So
specimen has been removed. What are those structures?
This
Catching?
was
They are
actually
looking like fairly thick hilar structures. What are they?
No, this is not hilar structure. I think that area actually represents the area of falciform attachment to the liver. The other thing was simple bleeders only, small bleeders.
But why so many? Because in
There
surgery,
is no
you should
so
never
many,
have
sir.
more than
Only-
2 bleeders unattended.
Sir, this is not bleeder. I didn't use CUSA. I just used bipolar and other devices. It's not
Because
CUSA.
what was taught is that you keep tying and you shouldn't have more than 2 artery forces in your field.
So actually,
Shankar,
there was
a word on that, Shankar?
About what, sir?
Not more than 2 artery forceps on the field.
That we cannot tell, no, sir. The surgeon on the field.
No. See, I mean, the thing is, you shouldn't have more than 2 bleeders unattended. More than 2 means you're in a soup. You should not have more than 2. That is actually the dictum what we were taught. Because if you have more than 2, then there is a problem. Pari?
Absolutely, sir. I agree. In fact, I wouldn't go to the second bleeder until I am done with the first bleeder.
Okay. No, I've seen actually, and general surgery, I've seen hydrocele surgery with 50 artery forceps.
If I see a bleeder, I won't do anything else until I control it. In fact, I'm okay.
Here, okay, Professor, I can tell you what are those artery forces. One is actually on the pedicule of segment 4B. I think that is understandable. One
Right.
is on the falciform ligament attachment, and the other 2 of small the hepatic vein branches, possibly the segment 4B veins going to
No, the
middle
point
hepatic.
is, if your assistant is trying to hold one of those things, no, one will come off. And then, you'll be in some sort of hurry. You don't know, suddenly blood will well up and you don't know which one is that, because then another hand will come in and that will dislodge another artery forceps.
Okay, I was lucky to have good assistant with me on those occasions. Okay, sir.
You're very defensive. You never agree to the.
No, this is not a question of agreement. I didn't feel any difficult bleeders during this
See, the
session.
whole area looks quite dry anyway, but there's an interesting.
Prathapan, you said that you injected saline to find the bile leak.
Yeah.
Yeah, even that point I was worried. Is a saline used at all? Can you make out?
Sir, bile leak, even if there is a bile inside the bile duct, if you inject saline, it will mix with the bile and it will be with pressure, it will come out rather than using the.
What is your technique, Pari?
Sir, one, we usually don't inject anything. I leave a pad and press it and leave it for some time and see if there is any staining of the bile seen. And sometimes even if we have to do, we reluctantly use the methylene blue. We had cases where Middle Eastern patients who were G6PD deficient and then had a severe hemolysis. So that makes me very, very fearful to use the methylene blue. But if I had to use, 2 things I use, methylene blue or propofol. So these are the 2 things we use. Most of the time we don't use anything. We just press dry pad and then see if there is any leak.
Sir, recently my postgraduates went for a posting in Rila Institute, and they came back and told that they use regularly propofol.
Okay,
So after that, we have been using propofol.
right, okay.
Sometimes we have used intralipids also, but we don't use it. I've seen it being used intralipid, but propofol or methylene blue. Methylene blue, I'm a little worried because if suppose the patient is G6PD negative, I mean deficient, they have a very horrid post-op course.
So
And
saline
That
is not
happened in a
the,
donor.
saline is
And
not the choice.
methylene blue also makes the field very messy.
True.
Methylene blue, we want. I didn't know about the propofol, but this thing methylene blue I didn't use because I know the problem with methylene blue.
So you're comfortable with saline?
Yes, sir. It was not showing anything, so I okay. So the post-op period patient developed a right shoulder pain. Ultrasound revealed a relatively well-defined anechoic collection with few low-level echoes noted in the epigastric region in subhepatic space, extending into the right hypochondrium, and it was around size of 10 into 4.7 into 9 centimeters. I was worried about bile leak and biloma. We did a USG guided aspiration, around 350 cc of serosanguinous fluid aspirated. Bilirubin level was normal and managed with conservative measures.
Prathapan, you didn't keep a drain after the thing.
One single drain was kept, and it developed a collection after removing the drain.
Okay.
So this is the final HPR. It showed only biliary cystadenoma and no evidence of any atypia, and attached liver shows chronic inflammation surrounding the cyst, and gallbladder which was attached to the lesion, and that was histologically unremarkable. So follow-up, I saw the patient last Wednesday. She was asymptomatic. I did an ultrasound that was showing only grade 1 fatty liver without any focal liver issues. So coming to biliary cystadenoma.
One minute, Prathapan, one question. I guess you mentioned that in the intro funding that there were some solid areas in the cyst, right? Solid and cystic areas you mentioned.
Yes,
Is
solid
right?
areas. There was no with to my finger, my hand. It was feeling solid.
Okay,
so they explored and.
Yeah, in such cases, I would always mark any suspicious solid areas. Otherwise, because they may not see that area, they may just cut it. As you know, once you go to the pathology department after fixing, it all looks totally different. Looks like a proper cadaver thing from a cadaver. So they can't make out anything, especially when they cut it, the cyst collapses and it looks totally different. So if at all you have to do anything, you have to mark it on the table. So that is one thing I would have done. Another thing is, I think you mentioned that a gallbladder was removed because it was adherent to segment 5 or something.
No, it was onto the cyst. I showed it.
Okay. Otherwise, would you remove gallbladder in such cases?
No, it was seen. You can see the right lower picture. The gallbladder is onto the cyst. So I thought it is better to remove the gallbladder rather than dissecting it and keeping it hanging.
Absolutely. Yeah, we will routinely remove gallbladder whenever we do a Pringles or any surgery in that area. If we do a Pringle, we'll always remove gallbladder because we are not sure. Sometimes the gallbladder might have undergone necrosis, the mucosal necrosis. We are not sure. So whenever we do a Pringle or the plan is to do a Pringle, we'll always remove gallbladder.
And Prathapan, there is a question in the chat box. Histology, was it showing that typical ovarian stroma?
It was showing ovarian stroma. I'm coming to it. It was showing ovarian stroma, and there are 3 types. I will just mention those things in subsequent slides. Okay.
Okay.
Right. So this was the picture, and it was showing ovarian stroma as well. And regarding biliary cystadenoma, it's a very rare, slow-growing, multilocular benign cystic lesion. Less than 5% of solitary non-parasitic cysts. More than 80% are seen intrahepatically, and predominantly seen in right lobe in older literature, but recent data shows increased predilection to segment 4B area. Highest incidence is in middle-aged women, and origin direct from primitive hepatobiliary stem cells or aberrant bile duct, and mostly asymptomatic. And these are the examination finding. You will see a cyst of varying size from 3 to 30 centimeters, and surface will show multiple cysts bulging out, and cut surface will show thin wall cysts with varying sizes with smooth lining, and it may contain mucin. Interestingly, there is another type of cystadenoma mentioned, that is a serous type of cystadenoma, which you can see in ovary and pancreas. They have no malignant potential, but it's a very rare thing. Microscopically, it will show cyst lining, biliary epithelium, cellular stroma, and collagenous connective tissue, the cuboidal to columnar mucin secreting epithelial cells, and papillary projection. Features of malignancy include nuclear hyperchromasia with enlargement, loss of polarity, and multilayering and increased mitosis. Biliary cystadenoma can be classified into three based on histopathology. One, hepatobiliary cystadenoma with mesenchymal stroma. Second, hepatobiliary cystadenoma without mesenchymal stroma. This mesenchymal stroma is a classical ovarian type of stroma, and they have some estrogen receptors, progesterone receptors, etc. described. And the third variety is hepatobiliary cystadenoma with mesenchymal stroma having polypoidal epithelial component projecting into the cyst lumen. So coming to cystic lesion, these are the various cystic lesions. Simple cyst and complex cyst include neoplasms, inflammatory, infectious, post-traumatic conditions. So differentiating simple cyst from complex cyst is very important, because simple cyst we can leave it alone, but complex cyst many a time require some form of interventions. So you can use various imaging modalities to identify what exactly is happening. So simple cyst usually will show an anechoic, homogeneous, accepted, thin and smooth margins. But complex cyst usually will have irregular border, hyperechogenic septations, loculations, shadowing beyond calcifications, etc. So it is very important to differentiate these two things. So these are the different types of cysts. One is the polycystic liver disease. Second is the biliary cystadenoma, which I just mentioned. Third is echinococcal cyst, and fourth is hemorrhagic cyst, and last type is a cystic type of XCC. So this is a simple cyst which will become very large, and if it is symptomatic, we may do surgery. This is polycystic liver disease, where you can see some cysts in the kidneys as well on the right image. And this is a patient recently came to my OP with a dyspnea. And when I took a chest X-ray, that was showing a large lesion in the lung. CT scan showed a large hepatic hydatid cyst with extension into the lung, almost replacing the right lung. And I planned for surgery, but patient didn't turn up. So this is another cystic lesion which we opened for diagnostic purpose only, and that was showing a neuroendocrine tumor. It was a very large liver cyst, and it was showing solid areas as well. So the diagnostic modalities in cystic liver disease can be ultrasound, CT, MRI, and contrast enhanced ultrasound. But MRI has got a higher sensitivity and specificity in cystic disease of liver. So this is the diagnostic and management algorithm. When you have cystic lesion, whether there is a presence of complex features, if it is not there, it can call it a simple cyst. If it is symptomatic, we can observe, we can resect, we can do fenestration, sclerotherapy, etc. If it is a complex cyst, you have to differentiate it into mucinous cyst and hydatid cyst. Mucinous cyst, many times you require resection. And if the histology diagnosis showing biliary cystadenoma or biliary cystadenocarcinoma. If it is a hydatid cyst, if it is less than 5 centimeters, they recommend medical management. If it is 5 to 10 centimeters, they do pair. And if it is more than 10, surgical treatment. Thank you.
Yeah, Pari, comments.
I mean, very nice case as usual. And unfortunately didn't generate a lot of controversy as usually is expected.
So I'm going on leave for 2 weeks. That's right.
Oh my God,
Okay, yeah.
that's a bad news.
Next week we have Onam, and after that I have exam in Amrita. So
Okay.
next 2 weeks I won't be available. So
Right.
I thought
Missing you, Pradam.
Yeah,
Right.
we
You
were
got
missing the
addicted to
controversy.
Saturday evenings, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. Otherwise,
Yeah.
nice case. I think.
no, we can
Niket
continue
has
after
got,
question.
he's got a question. If you see, Shankar will take that question. of lymphadenectomy in case assisted, carcinoma.
Lymphadenectomy, sir.
Ah.
I mean, Pratapan, let him answer, sir.
He has done the literacy search now.
No, there is nothing to suggest any lymph node resection
If
other
there
than
is any, no, I mean, is a question from the audience. If there is suspicion, or if it is a cystadenocarcinoma, you said you had seen 2 cases cystadenocarcinoma. What is that you have done differently?
So I have 2 cases. One case I didn't do resection at all because that patient was having a very large lesion with extensive involvement of liver with infiltrating areas. The second case was a patient came from Gulf with a huge ascites. So when I aspirated, that was showing mucinous ascites, and I did ultrasound, that was showing a very small lesion in the left lobe. So that was suggesting some cystic lesion, and I did resection left apoplectomy in that patient, and the report came as biliary cystadenocarcinoma. He was okay for next 2 years, and later he developed peritoneal nodules, and finally he succumbed. So that was the second case. So lymph node dissection per se is not having any role in these sort of cystic biliary tumors. But if there is a nodal disease present in that area, we can remove that. So not like the carcinoma of the gallbladder or other metastatic livers.
So what is the recurrence rate of this benign biliary cystadenoma, and what will you do if it recurs?
Sir, so if you have the policy of doing enucleation, there is a chance of recurrence.
100%.
Sometimes what happens is
Oh,
the posterior wall of the cyst may go into the left hepatic duct, and we may not be able to, we are not in a position to remove the cyst completely without resecting the bile duct. In those situations, if you didn't do a hepatectomy, this patient can recur. Otherwise, if you have removed completely without with a margin of liver, I think the recurrence rate is not very high.
Okay. Is there any situation of multiple or the whole liver studded with biliary cystadenoma?
I haven't seen, but if you see multiple cysts, we have a tendency to call them polycystic liver disease, and we may observe those patients.
No, I think there is a condition called biliary, multiple biliary hamartomas. I think that's called von Meinberg complex.
Meinberg complex.
Yeah, you can have multiple small bile containing cysts. Previously, they were thought as biliary hamartomas, but now they apparently have a different embryogenesis and histopathology. So they can mimic biliary hamartomas, but they are very small. They are multiple small lesions, never like this, such a big lesion.
Pari, I have a girl admitted in my ward with vomiting. When they did ultrasound, it was showing cystic lesions attached to liver at multiple sites, and they diagnosed it as mesenchymal hamartomas. Actually, I have sent her for MRI. I will.
They got the MR images is very striking, characteristic. So many times, if you see that, you can just make the diagnosis, but they are never so big. Mesenchymal hamartomas. It used to be Dr. Rajan Saxena's very famous question. He used to catch the first year fellows.
I am seeing for the first time that mesenchymal hamartoma. So I am planning a discussion on that once I do surgery. Okay.
You don't need to do any surgery for that.
No. If I do surgery, otherwise there is no point in discussing. No, what else you discuss?
Pratapan, Pitambaran has just come in and is late, but he has a question if you see in the chat box.
Yeah, I to this question, I have a case. I think Dr. Shankar presented a case in the last year when he was discussing the cases. The biliary cystadenoma.
I hope Shankar will come back with another series.
Yeah.
Pardon, sir?
Sure.
I hope Shankar will come back with another evening series. Yeah, we had a wonderful session actually. We had both physicians and surgeons together. Yeah, Pradhan, what is the answer to that question?
This is actually the cystic lesions in that area can be either an IBMN type lesion arising from bile duct, or it can be a mucinous cystic neoplasm rupturing into the, eroding into the bile duct and producing an intrabiliary cyst. Both situations I have seen. I think that question has to be different. It can be a biliary IPMN type lesions. I don't know what Pitambaran is.
Yeah.
Pitambaran,
No, actually, yeah. Actually, I thought there are sometimes we see that cystic lesions very close to the origin, close to the hepatic joining of the hepatic ducts. So
Yeah.
in that case, it may be difficult to get a margin if you are suspecting biliary cystadenoма.
This is the one thing I just discussed with Patta sir. I think the posterior wall may not be possible to remove, and in those situations, a resection, liver resection is the better choice than enucleation. So I had a case with cholangitis, and this patient had a cystic lesion inside the bile duct, and actually that was a ruptured cystadenoma into the left hepatic duct. And Dr. Shankar presented a similar case last year, I think. We had a discussion.
Great memory, Prathapan.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to appreciate Prathapan's memory because that was a hepatobiliary cystadenoma. It had both liver component as well as component within the bile duct, and which was not diagnosed properly in the first instance. It was thought that it was some stone disease in the bile duct, and we got the patient after ERCP was attempted, and they could not remove anything. So we also did a CBD exploration, and we could remove only a fleshy mass-like thing. And finally, after we have to do a second stage hepatectomy. So unless we know about all these entities, sometimes we may not be offering the correct treatment for the patients. I just want to ask, I want to reiterate what Pari has told. At the end of resection, we have to open the specimen on the table, and we have to open all the septations and look for the solid components which has to be marked. So I run the risk of repeating it, but that's very, very important, because once it gets fixed in the formalin, you can't identify these areas. We have to open the specimen ourselves, and sometimes actually Dr. H. Ramesh has presented on one of the IAG conference. The paper is titled as Beware of a Diagnosis of a Solitary Cyst of the Liver or a Simple Cyst of the Liver, wherein he quoted his experience of how a radiological diagnosis of a solitary cyst finally turned out to be not a simple cyst. It turned out to be either a hiatic cyst or a cystadenoma. So we have to, whenever a radiologist gives a diagnosis of a simple cyst, we have to be very careful. Sometimes it could be a univesicular hiatic presenting like a simple cyst, unless we look for the trilaminar membrane carefully. Sometimes we can wrongly diagnose. Similarly, a simple cyst can have a hemorrhage, which can resolve with leaving behind some septation. So just because you see a septate doesn't mean that it has to be a cystadenoma. So all these things we have to keep in mind.
Yeah. So,
Shireen from Pakistan, she's a general surgeon. She asked a question. I think you answered that. How to differentiate a hemorrhagic cyst with a cystadenoma?
So can I just?
Yes.
Yeah, the last point Dr. Shankar told is very relevant. Many times there may be multiple simple cysts. When they, as they grow, they bump into each other, and they grow. They keep on growing. So the wall of one cyst looks like a septation. They may actually turn out to be multiple simple cysts. Just because they bumped and grew into each other, they may appear like multi-septated cysts. That's another thing. And Pitambaram has raised a very important thing. I think we just discussed. I was mentioning that I'm very, very comfortable only if I have a good MRI image, and then I have a picture of where the ducts join and all, because the biliary anatomy is nothing like normal anatomy. We realize it only after seeing all the anatomies every time for the donors. So there is nothing called normal anatomy. You get all sorts of variations. So it's very important to have a good idea about where the ducts are. So that's an important point he has mentioned.
See, to everyone here, Dr. Shireen is from Pakistan, and she wants to have a joint webinar, Pakistan Indian surgeons, and she suggested asking for some, she said, wanted some topics, and she wanted about trauma. I suggested gastrointestinal bleeding. So I said, we'll have a 2-hour trial webinar, which half the surgeons in Pakistan, half from our side I'll present, and I'll come back to all of you for a segment of GI bleeding. I hope you all accept it, Pari, Shankar.
Absolutely, sir.
And
Love to do that.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Pradhaban,
Yes.
Pitambaran. So I think GI bleeding will be a good topic, and she'll come back with dates, and then we'll take it forwards. I think it's a very straightforward case. When we didn't have much of an option to pin you down or criticize you, but I think it's a very well done case. And regarding Shankar's case discussion, you can always go back to Learning General Surgery YouTube, and you can find that case there. If you want to go, any one of you want to, all the cases are there. And of course, Pradhaman's cases are there as well for posterity. Thank you. I think we are breaking a little early, and Shirin says thanks to everyone, and Shirin, we are there with you. You can see the spirit from this side of the this part of the country. Thank you. Thanks once again. Have a nice Sunday. Pradhaban, we hope to see you soon.
Yes, sir.
Happy
nice
Onam,
holiday.
Pradhaban.
Happy
Onam to
Thank
you
you.
and
Thank
all
you.
the
Happy-
friends from Kerala.
Happy
Thank
Onam,
you.
Pradhaman. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Pitambaran as well. Bye.
Pithambaram too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Sorry to join late.
No,
Just-
that's
No,
okay.
no
problem.
problem.
Next time.
Thank you, sir. Bye. Good night.
Thank you. Bye.
Good night, sir.